What is up, everybody? We are here today with my man from way back, Jon Micah Summerall.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not summer. It's not Summer. You'll spell it wrong if you do it that. It's
What?
Sumrall.
More like
I always pause there when
summer.
I tell people.
What is that? What is
Everyone
your
always wants to do
ethnicity?
summer.
Is it German?
So my understanding is that the last name is I believe it's English.
Oh, okay.
It
Good
kind of
English
trace.
name.
I found some okay, funny story. We'll just jump right into it.
Do it.
Of all places,
For the people want.
we went and performed in Manila in the Philippines at this
Word.
big church over there.
Okay.
The lead pastor's last name was also Sumrall, and I was like, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And we spelled it the same. And
Because you're clearly
he's white
Filipino
from America,
yeah.
but he's white as well. And so I was like, dude, like this is crazy. And so we started talking. We were able to trace family members into the same county here in America, and so we're like, yeah, we're probably related.
Wow.
So he had more heritage info than I had ever had before that goes further back that I'd never been able to like figure out. And so through kind of the little tidbits I got from him, we found most likely English heritage there. And then the other funny thing about it, so he sent me our family crest, the Summerall family crest that's been there since England. And so my last pair of inner monitors, I actually had that family crest.
Let's go.
On the in-ears. So if you look at any photos from, the last 10 years or whatever, that's what was on the in-ears. But those got stolen out of my car this last year, so they're gone. So some drug addict in Portland is now walking around with my family crest with custom molded in-ears that don't fit his ears because they're custom molded to mine that he can't do anything with.
But this also explains your lifelong obsession with tea and crumpets, which now is finally explained by your ancestors.
Yeah. No, ironically, though, my mom's side of the family is predominantly German, Breidenbach being my grandmother's maiden name. So I would say I'm probably more German than anything else, as far as actual lineage bloodline. Because my great-grandparents immigrated from Germany.
That sharp jawline didn't come out of nowhere, sir. That thing could cut lemons. So for those that are just tuning in and don't know, this is the lead singer of Kutless. Obviously, we back in the day were label mates for many years.
Yeah.
Did multiple tours, multiple show dates, multiple hangouts. But all that does not compare to the fact that I went to your home church, which I called affectionately the Shire.
I remember.
Which I still remember this to this day. So I'm going to talk about that because to this day, I still talk about the Shire Church. This was it's somewhere in Oregon, right? It's not Portland.
Yeah. So I grew up in Southern Oregon. Yeah. Okay. I grew up in the Medford area, Southern Oregon. So it's just north of the Oregon-California border. The town I grew up in is actually called Jacksonville. It's a National Historic Landmark. And then the church was about 15 minutes out in the country outside of Jacksonville in a little town called Rouge. And there's like nothing out there but like some farms and so this church just grew and grew. My dad ended up being the executive pastor there.
Okay.
And the church at its peak, probably in the late 90s ish, was about 7,000 people or so on a Sunday morning, which was pretty wild to have that big of a church in kind of a smaller area, especially out in the country there. So,
but you're not painting the picture that I got, which was, I can't remember what tour we were on. It was a big tour because like the whole tour came to church that morning. Those that chose to wake up. I can't remember what tour it was, but the thing about this church service, which still stands out in my mind is that it was outside. And it was outside in this sort of like, it started high and then descended low, and the worship and everything was on the floor, and then it descended. It was like an amphitheater, is the only thing I can describe it, but it was in the round. Everything was a big giant circle, and you could sit there and, go to church outside. So I thought, oh, this is like Oregon thing. We're going to go outside today because we're from Oregon and we love lumber and coffee and Dutch Brothers, and we're going to be outside. I don't know. That's a poor impression. None of that's accurate. But I do remember either I must have asked you or somebody, and you're like, oh, no, we meet outside 80% of the year. Like, we're always outside. Like, our service is outside all the time. And it was like, it was very kind of wooded and it was beautiful. But it was like, all I can remember was it reminded me of the Shire from Lord of the Rings. Am I off in this description?
So Oregon is very green. If you've never been
Yes.
there,
It's beautiful.
literally when I would fly home from tour, I'd get off the plane and I could smell the trees almost
Yeah.
immediately. I was like, "Whoa, I'm back." So
Yes.
it is a very green place. Now, Southern Oregon has much better weather than Portland does. It
Right.
rains a lot less there.
Right.
But this, yeah, so it was a predominantly grass amphitheater. They built like kind of wooden tiers, and
Right.
then each layer was grass all the way up, and then went down. There was
Yeah.
a grass stage that was built down below, and they built a baptismal down there to do baptisms with like a creek running into it, and like it
Okay,
was really
now see,
pretty. And
now I don't that's why it was the Shire, okay?
yeah, yeah, it was very beautiful. They had tons of flowers. They took very good care of it. They had a very large grounds crew that like kept that place dialed. And we met all summer long. I would say probably, usually the weather started getting good like in May. And then
Yeah.
we would meet outside every service until like September, October, depending on what the weather was doing. And then once like winter kind of hit, it was getting too rainy and cold, then we'd move back inside. But again, part of that too is the church was so big that amphitheater could seat like close to 5,000.
Right.
So they would do a morning service and an evening service outdoors. When we moved back
Okay.
indoors, they would be doing like 5 or 6 services indoors because the indoors was a lot smaller too. So it was
Right.
also a lot. Not only was it beautiful and amazing to sit outside in the beautiful sunshine, in with all the nice flowers and trees, but it was more practical too for just getting
Well,
people through on a Sunday.
the Florida guy, as a literal Florida man, this could not compute for me because I'm like, first of all, never could you ever do this in Florida except for maybe a
No,
1 week out of the year because you're either something's growing on you, something's trying to eat you, something's trying to devour you, or the rain is going to get you, or the wind is going to get you. Like I'm like, never would we ever meet
yeah,
outside except for this little window of time. And you guys were so casual about it, like, why wouldn't you meet outside? It's beautiful. I mean, I'm like, yeah, you live in the land of the Goonies. You live in the land of Twilight. Of course you could do this,
yeah,
And Oregon has a very special place in my life because, again, grew up in Florida my whole life, didn't really tour until I was 20 something. And the first place I toured, the first 2 states I toured in, of all places, was Idaho and Oregon. And
wow,
to this day, the only place I've ever had my life threatened during a show is in Lincoln City, Oregon. And the only place that I've had spells cast on me was Seattle, Washington in Pioneer Square. And so like that whole tour, which you did the tour, not at the same time, but
wait,
the extreme
it was in
tour.
Pioneer Square. Pioneer Square's in Portland. You sure?
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
it Seattle or
Oh,
was
okay,
Portland?
I'm sorry. It
Okay,
was definitely
yeah,
Seattle. It's whatever the Seattle equivalent. Maybe it
okay,
was.
yeah.
I take it back. I don't know. Something. Maybe
Keeping
it was
Oregon
Portland where
weird.
that happened. Now I take it. Okay, maybe this all happened in Oregon. Definitely had my life threatened by an angry skateboarder in the middle of the show in Lincoln City. And then definitely had the same kid that I was playing hacky sack with turned out to be a warlock who cast spells on me while I was on stage. And, as I was
Welcome to
traveling
Oregon.
through Oregon, exactly. Well, I had nothing to compare this to because it was like, oh, yeah, we're one of the most unchurched states in America. Also, we love lumbering. And also, here's even the concept of 7,000 coffee places to stop at was mind blowing to me because again, Florida, it's
Yeah,
too hot out to drink coffee. But then you get to the coast and it's gorgeous, but it's freezing cold, but you can surf. I'm like, this state does not compute in my head. And
yeah,
I spent a month there. So anyway,
yeah. And
am I inaccurate?
well, no, that was my baseline. That's what I knew growing up. So then like
Yeah.
when people are like, you need to move to Nashville, like for music and all this kind of stuff, I'm like, have you been to where I live? Like,
Right.
why would I do that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
we've got mountains, we've got rivers, we've got lakes. I mean, I grew up skiing, whitewater rafting, fishing, like going to the coast. Yeah, meeting outside every week for church, like
Right.
mountain biking. Like, it's just gorgeous. We're outside all the time. And so I travel like Florida, and I'm like, this is so hot and miserable. And like you said, there's
Yeah.
bugs,
Why
and
are all
it's
these people here?
yeah, this is terrible. Like, why do you guys live here? Because this is like, you can go outside like 1 month out of the whole year, and I'm outside like 12 months out of the year.
Well, it's either you absolutely hate going outside or you love being outside all the time, and we call that that's
Yeah.
the other side. Like that's the boomer guy with like he's at the tiki bar nonstop. His skin looks like leather. He's got the Panama Jack shirt on, or anyway. We have that version. Those guys will not come inside. Like, they have been here to be out there. They absolutely adore it. The other thing we used to lovingly joke about Oregon was that it was white people pushed to 10. All right. So like everything, like if you imagine the faders on a soundboard, you know, if white people in other states are around a 6 or a 7, you know, things that you'd be like, that's a white thing to do, like 6 or 7, maybe another state. But in Oregon, it's pushed to 10. Like anything that's like, which is very mainstream now. But, you know, spending time in Portland, I have a really good homie in Portland. I just was like, I started watching Portlandia and I thought that was a documentary. Turns out it's just a spoof of everything in Portland. I don't even know where to start. You know, I'm not here to rag on your state because I do love it. Like some of my favorite people are from there. Some of my favorite music comes from there. And Matt Carney won't stop singing about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong.
You're
here.
not wrong. You're not wrong.
wrong.
And the spoof on Portlandia was a spoof,
right.
But they were not far off on a lot of it. You're like,
no,
it's funny because it's true, you know, like a lot of it. I mean, obviously they take it to the next level, but
you guys aren't offended by it. It's like, you're like, that's how it is.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, I'm like, well, you got to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think anyone. But here's it, and I don't know if you know this. I actually moved to Idaho, like in 2020, so it's been almost 6 years now.
No way.
And I agree with you. I thought Oregon was like you said, white turned to 10 until I moved to Idaho, and then I realized that Oregon wasn't quite at 10. Idaho, actually, there was a notch above that we hadn't reached yet. And they live in North Idaho specifically.
Yes, they have a militia, and they're gathering right now. I actually spent a whole summer in Idaho when I was in 4th grade. I lived out on a ranch, or like a ranch with no power, with my Jersey aunt and uncle, of all places. No power. So I just thought, it doesn't matter. Anyway, but that's not what we're here to talk about. It's so good to have you on here, man. I have so many great memories of touring with you guys, hanging out with you guys. But there's 2 tours that stand out to me, but there's one tour moment that does stand out to me. And I really want to know if you remember this moment. I feel like we were on, I don't know, it's too many tours to remember. Whatever the tour was, the show landed on a Halloween. And where we were, I feel like we were in Kansas City, but don't quote me on that. And so it was like a couple days before, like, hey, everybody dress up for Halloween night for the show. We're all going to pick an outfit, you know, wear something, right? And me being the laziest possible thing that I could pick, I was like, oh, I'll go as an 80s rapper because that is a real stretch. And or maybe I wore like a suit or something. I don't know if I was like either trying to be like a pimped out 70s guy or whatever I was. You, sir, were Batman. Do you remember this? You were Batman that night. You dressed in Batman. Okay. Yeah. And here's the thing about that night, because I think on that tour we did Are You Real every night? Did we do that song every night? Or maybe we just did it just for this show. I'm blanking on.
I don't know. It would make sense that we would do it every night.
Yeah. We have the song Are You Real that we did together back in 2005. That's on my Behind the Music album. By the way, thank you again for blessing that song. Either we did it just for that night or we did it on the tour. I don't remember, but the visual in my head is, hey, I'm decked out, right? I got my gear. I don't know what you're wearing. I'm not paying attention, you know, and I'm not ready for whatever's about to come next. And you didn't walk onto the stage. You flew onto the stage. Like you put 2 hands straight out and you just, I don't know, your cape was behind you. And you came out like, are you real? Like this intense like chorus, but it's clearly Batman flying onto the stage. And the visual was too much for me because, you know, I don't know. Do you remember this night? This is a core memory of me.
Yeah. So I mean,
am I tripping?
Core memory.
It is a core memory. That's one of my favorite memories of Jon Micah.
This is how we became who we are today.
It's true.
Dressing up like Batman and flying across the stage.
Yes.
Yeah. So the funny thing about both tour pranks and like tour costumes, things like that, is like it's highly contingent on what you can find at Walmart at like midnight.
Yes, that's right. Your choices are limited. This is true.
Yeah. And so I think we were like, whenever we decided to dress up, we're like, all right, we got to go figure out what we're gonna do, you know?
Right.
And so so I think that was like this could be fun. And then that culminated into, if KJ doesn't know about this, when I come out, it's gonna be like a prank on him. It's gonna be even better. Yeah. And then, you know, I think it built as the day went on and formed into that moment.
Into the moment of culmination.
I mean, how often have you shared the stage with Batman, you know?
Not enough, I say. Good sir. Well, here's the thing, I think, because I'm always thinking of the crowd, you know, that's just where my mindset is usually. And the thing about stuff we do on stage, our sweet little inside jokes that we do, is that most of the time the shows are attended by like good Christian folk. You know what I mean? Just like church regular, average. The people that came to our shows were mostly they're just regular church folk, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's who came to these type of tours. And it's not like this night was advertised as a costume party. It wasn't advertised as you should dress up too, because you know, Christians feel certain ways about Halloween or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
There was never a moment of like, it's just like all of a sudden. So I'm thinking like whoever walked through the door that day was like, you know, I'm not celebrating Satan's holiday. I am not going to bow to the you know, to Sam Hain. I'm going to go to this good godly Christian show. And then everybody is dressed up as something on the stage. Not just one band, like every band. You know, it was just like, this is what happens through tours. You know, you're on the road for a month or two, you just get bored, you want to do something to break up the monotony. And I just don't remember the crowd being like, ha ha. I just remember the crowd being like, what's happening? Why is this happening? Why are they dressed like that? Why does KJ look like Huggy Bear? Why is Batman on stage? That was my impression. Do you think I was off in that?
Yeah. No, I think so. This is the fine line. It's with pranks too, right? Because traditionally you've got the prank night at the last night of tour.
Last night of the tour, yep.
And so like there's always this tension of, okay, these people still paid tickets to be here, so let's not ruin the show by pranking each other so hard.
Let's ruin the show.
Yeah. So there's always that tension, and depending on the tour and the people involved. And then also, I'll say like groupthink, because that's the other thing. Like, I would have never dressed up like Batman if it was just me, right?
Right.
But when the whole tour is doing it, I'm like,
I'm in. You can't be the odd man out.
Yeah. Like, so now I'm like fully in. I'm not just kind of in. I'm all the way in, because I'm like, yeah, I don't do things halfway very often.
Yeah.
Either I'm in or I'm out, and if I'm in, we're freaking going for it.
Yeah.
And so, so I think there was like, because the whole tour was doing it and we all probably egged each other on, like, oh, this will be great. This will be great. And nobody stopped to go, is this actually a good idea for our business and what we're here to do?
Nope.
We're like,
we don't care.
Like, oh, this will be fun. We don't care. This will be fun.
And if I do recall, you didn't have like the full, like old school Batman. Like, I think you were Dark Knight Batman. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Because also this is 2005. So I think, like that, right? Or ish?
Yeah.
No, the song came out in 05.
Correct.
So it would be a little
after that.
Yeah. But this would have been Dark Knight era of movies.
Yeah.
So like, and it's probably, you probably couldn't find old school Batman at Walmart. Yeah. Where are the drugs?
Nor should we ever.
Do you remember that? We used to joke about that because one of the guys noticed there was a list. There was a lisp when he said, "Where are the drugs at?" And then that's all you could ever hear anymore. So we would always like just randomly quote it. Where are the drugs at? Tell me where the drugs are.
You know, the thing that people don't understand about a moving tour is that it is like its own ecosystem. It's its own high school. It's its own high school with its own rules, and it has its own sort of like, you know, verbiage and things like that. The other one that I do remember very clearly, I think this is one of the, this might be the first tour I did with you guys, is that it was the era of the airsoft gun. And
yes, that one got out of hand.
Airsoft bullets are not soft. These are not Nerf bullets, okay? And it became really dangerous to get on stage at one point because I can't remember the other band who was on, but it was pretty much, it was really a war between you guys and the other band. I can't remember which band it was. Maybe it was Disciples. That sound right? Crystal Myers band? I'm blanking on who that was.
I remember Stellar Cart. I don't remember if it was the same tour or not, but it escalated
I don't think Stellar Cart was on.
Okay. So it must have been a different tour. So this must have been a fold over, or maybe that tour was the escalation of the Airsoft from this tour.
All I know is Bloods in the Crips, and I was caught in the crossfire. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, so the different tour then, because I'm pretty sure it was Stellar Cart, but Airsoft happened apparently on a couple of tours. But really, really where it escalated to where we're like, okay, we need to like stop because this is really bad. One, airsoft guns look like real weapons.
They do.
Like when you're running around with them, especially back then.
Yep.
And people have wised up a little bit to like, hey, maybe you shouldn't color the orange tip black because it actually looks like a real gun. And so, like in like places like Texas, they actually have actual sheriffs with real guns as security for the show, right? And so we're running around with airsoft guns like tucked into our waistband, you know, like sneaking around the church, like looking like we realized we had sheriff like security that day. And we're like, whoa, guys, okay, we need to put these away today because Texas is different and they have real guns here. Like, I don't want anybody to get actually shot. So we put them away, but then we got out to Oregon, and at this time we were all using the spring-loaded airsoft guns because those are appropriate for shooting each other, kind of.
Appropriate.
Yeah, we got to Portland. It was a sold-out show in Portland, and the promoter had heard of our Airsoft Wars that were happening. So he bought
Pensions.
just our band the CO2-powered airsoft guns. He got one for each of the band members. And he's like, hey, I got you a gift. Here's this CO2-powered airsoft gun. Leveled up the intensity of the war where feelings actually got hurt to the point where BBs were getting embedded in people's skin, and near fights almost broke out. And we were like, okay, we're done. But this is no longer fun anymore.
Broker peace treaty. Well, here's all I remember is that it was the Murray Hill Theater, which is Jacksonville, very famous Christian venue.
Yeah.
And it's a very open space, and there's a lot of space on the sides of the stages. And I never headlined any of these tours. I was always support somewhere in the mix. And I would just remember standing there and I hear ping, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of this verse, ping, and I'm like,
yes,
looking around, and you guys would kind of fire and duck, but you're not firing really at me. You're firing at whoever's on the other side. And then it would be like, ping, and it would go off to the other side. And all I'm just trying to do is get through my show, right? And it's just, you'd hear it and feel like, I feel like a really bad mosquito bite. Yeah. You can't break character. The show must go on. It's not the time to be like, anyway, things are done. Words were said.
Yeah, we're all still friends, so it worked out. We worked it out.
It never got bad enough. I just was like, man, these Oregon dudes, they're a little gun happy. I thought my state was bad. All right. Anyway, we did many shows, many tours. But there's just one tour, one show.
We need an Oregon Man show. I bet you it'd be good. It'd be way different than Florida Man, but it would still be good.
Yeah. What is the Oregon Man? Well, it depends on what part of the state he's from. Like, if he's from Portlandia, I'm guessing he's got some flannel, maybe. I think flannel is pretty much. Would you say flannel would be a must anywhere the Oregon Man is?
Here's the thing: we're gonna have a dude from the woods that's a legit lumberjack that saws down trees by hand, and he's gonna wear flannel. And then we're gonna have a skinny dude with a man bun who also wears flannel in Portland,
and
they're very different from each other.
Yeah, their only thing they share in common is the Army Navy surplus store that they go to, is the flannel. And there is one show that I wanted to talk about. You brought me onto your podcast a couple of years ago, the Kutless podcast, to settle the score on this show. I think it was, or maybe James asked me to come on. I can't remember. And either I had heard about it or you'd mentioned me or something like that. And then maybe I texted somebody. I was like, oh, no. I still have the flyer of this said debacle. And you're like, well, you've got to come on. And so I don't remember. I don't think I stopped laughing for like the entire podcast because this particular show, which I don't know if I should put up the flyer or not, but it's aptly titled, would you like to say the title of this show?
Concert for the Youth in Bakersfield, California.
This is the show.
August 19th and 20th.
There's no doubt who their target audience is.
We are targeting the youth.
Which, there's not a single show out there that ever just says, like, what's the cutoff age? Like, no, sir, you can't come in here. You're over 18.
Yeah.
But the aptly titled Concert for the Youth, which we are going to say this many times until people hear. So it was in Bakersfield, California. I can't remember what year it was. Was it around 2012-ish? Does that sound right? That's not right timeline.
Yeah,
2013. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere could have been a couple years out. I don't know. We're getting to the age now where it's all just one big blur. I'm like,
it is a big blur.
I don't know if I was 20 or if I was 30 or 40. It's all the same now.
Well, if you do Christian music long enough, you'll have a show like this, okay? And the thing about this show was, and I remember the offer coming across, it must have been enough, whatever the show was, it was enough that I came out by myself. So that means I'm probably somewhere later in my career where I could just be like, I'm just taking it for nothing, and I'm coming out by myself, and I'm a rocker like that. So I wasn't trying to bring a DJ, a band, or nothing. But I remember seeing either the offer or something, or maybe they were just like, hey, you might want to look this show up before you approve it, because basically it was saying like support acts were like Justin Bieber, the entire song tour. Is this right? Am I off? Okay. Who else was on it?
So the advertising? The original flyer.
Okay, the original.
You had it.
That's right.
So you sent it to me earlier when we were talking. So I actually just pulled it up. VIP event host Willie Robertson.
Okay, here we go.
From Duck
Willie
Dynasty.
Robertson. Duck Dynasty was very big at the time.
Yep, and this is when they were like at their peak.
Yes.
Lecrae was headlining.
Lecrae was on the show. Yep. Or I'm say
Yep.
advertised.
Advertised as, yep, he was there. And then it had Kutless, it had us, The
Yep.
Afters, Sanctus
Yeah.
Real, Auto
Yep.
Adrenaline,
Yep.
kj52, that's you, Sean McDonald, V Rose, I don't know who that is,
Singer.
John Schlitt of Petra,
Got to go old school
John
because it's for the
John
youth.
Elef
Concert of the
for the
youth.
youth. But then we had John Elefante, the former lead singer of Kansas, for the youth.
Again, concert for the youth. Because there's nothing that a 12-year-old wants more than to hear the original singer of Kansas.
And former member of Journey, Kevin.
I forgot about that being on there.
Former Journey.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Also, Family Force 5, Manic
but
Drive.
Wait, there's more. Yep.
Christafari.
Yep.
Sean Locke.
Yep.
Like, it just...
Carrie Roberts.
Yeah. And then, like, supposedly to raise funds for human trafficking that is supposed to stay 80% local.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 8 charities on this flyer.
Yes.
Benefiting
so we don't really know
of the... Can we pause for a second? This is benefiting the charities of the British Red Cross. The British Red Cross.
But 80% stays local to Bakersfield.
Not the American Red Cross. We're sending the money across the pond from Bakersfield, California for the youth.
Yeah.
Who else do we have on here?
As I recall, so Justin Bieber and Hillsong were not on the flyer.
They didn't make it to this flyer. That's correct.
No, but as I recall, and I could be wrong, help me remember this.
Yes.
As I recall, like Lecrae couldn't make it or something. They're like, oh yeah, Lecrae's not coming now. And then it was like, oh, Willie Roberts is not coming now. But now we have Hillsong and Justin Bieber.
That's what it was. Okay, you're right. It went from like, these artists were clearly not big enough. We're going bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just remember seeing this, anytime you get like a show offer from an unknown promoter, from an unknown event that's like, massive, right? In a I would say, Bakersfield's a smaller town. It's not LA. It's, they call maybe it a B market. It's not an A market. And you see like this, if you've been around long enough, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to totally lose my shirt on this show because I'm going to go out there and the checks are going to bounce, because there's no way, a brand new event like this is going to even come up remotely, recoup their money. Not mentioning like what the guarantees would be on these people. Like, I'm sure Bieber and Hillsong would have been minimum 6 figures, just to hold them for the date. And I'm like thinking like, okay, this is a problem. This is not going to go well. This is, all of us are going to get out there and the promoters are going to disappear, or you're going to be like, this check is going to bounce faster than a basketball on a hot day. And did you guys feel the same way about this show going into it?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember what happened, because when we booked it, whatever was discussed was enough to be like, okay, we think they've got some backing financially to like, we think we got a good shot of at least getting paid on this thing. I don't know. Like,
I like how the standard is so low.
Yeah. Like, I was like, I don't think Willie Robertson's coming. I think they threw that on the flyer because they talked to his management and they never heard back, and they're just trying to make it look bigger than it is. And we've seen that before too.
Right. Classic move.
All the way back. I think you were part of this too. The Extreme Tour, even earlier 2000s.
Yes.
They used to do that where they would list like any band that had ever played it ever, and like any bands that had like maybe said that they might come eventually. They would just go ahead and put them on the poster. And so like we hadn't even like agreed to play the thing. And people,
it would be like with a small asterisk. It would say former alumni.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like it looked like this massive show with all these people.
Massive. Yeah.
And so I think we might still be on their flyers to this day. They're probably still putting Kutless performing the Extreme Tour. So I thought it was that. I thought it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna put all these guys on our flyer so it looks like a huge show, even though they're a former alumni, or maybe, we don't know. We hope so. But I was like, we have a contract in place. Like, and maybe Compassion was involved enough to the point that I was like, well, Compassion's legitimate. Like, hopefully,
but not as
we'll
legitimate
be okay.
as legitimate as the British Red Cross. I mean, clearly,
But it was like the week of that we were like, yeah, this is not good. Like, this is way worse than I think we had even anticipated. Like, we were already coming in cautiously, and then it was like, yeah, no, this is actually more of a disaster. And I feel like we got down there early We were there like
Yep.
because we flew in the night before, and we started texting everybody like, "Yo, don't get on your airplane if you're
Right. Don't
flying
get on the
out
plane.
here. Like,
Yep.
just
Right.
don't even try.
Cut your
Like,
losses.
this is
Yes.
yeah, this is not happening. Don't waste your time. Don't fly across the country to get here." Some people, it was too late. Like, you were probably because you're coming from Florida, you're like, I had to leave like last week to get here.
Well, my memory was that I think my guarantee was so low that I was like, I think I demanded to get paid up front. Like I was like, I
Okay.
think I was like gangster about it. I was like, I'm not getting on the plane unless you pay
Yeah.
up front full amount and pay for the flight. And because I saw all the red flags and I was just being like, been
Oh
there,
yeah.
done that, got the t-shirt, not doing it. And so
Yeah.
whatever my guarantee was, it's not the band cost. So I was like, all right, I got
Yeah.
paid. I'm coming out. Doesn't matter. But
I'll show up. It's cool.
what I did remember was that there was two promoters that I was kind of talking to, like two people that were part of the show, and they were really beefing. So that's when I knew like this is
Yeah.
not going to go well. Like there's like the two people that are kind of in charge, or that it's just absolute confusion, and they are clearly not
Yeah.
talking to each other. They're clearly like at odds for each other. So when I landed, I basically had two promoters to deal with that were completely like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker. They were not talking to each other. And I do remember seeing you guys, and you guys were like, hey, it's a crap storm. We're just gonna make the best of it. We're gonna do this show at this
Yeah.
one church. It wasn't even where the show was supposed to happen. And you're like, we're gonna go ahead and just play, and we cobbled together a sound system and blah blah blah. We're gonna go ahead. Well, the other promoter who probably had caused most of the problems, the one that had basically just said that
Yeah.
Jesus was coming, the Apostle Paul, probably some of the Nephilim, they're all on the flyer, they're all gonna be there. Either he had like picked me up from the airport. He was kind of like, yeah, I'm not dealing with them, so you've got to come and play my show.
Yeah,
So I
and I
went
think
from
we
like
might have
one
been with
show.
the feuding I think we might have been with the other feuding promoter.
Yes.
We were doing our show with that
Yes.
promoter who split
Yes.
off from your show with the
Yes.
other
Yes.
promoter. Yeah.
So
It's
it went
fantastic.
from one of the biggest shows in the human history playing to two shows playing the exact same day across town. And on top of them being across town, nobody would go with the other guy. Like nobody had they were like, absolutely not, man. Like you bounced every check. Like we're not going with
Yeah.
you. So I ended up going to this other show. I basically played two shows that day because I opened up for you guys, got in a car, drove halfway across the town, and played like kind of like a youth group kind of vibe with the other promoter. And leave it to me to try to make everybody happy and kill myself in the process. I just remember clearly, like, the one with you guys was like where everybody kind of came, like those that had been like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Justin Bieber. They came to that show. So it was pretty packed. It wasn't like it was a small room. It was like maybe 500 people or so. The other one was just like a bunch of youth group kids that did not know who I was, did not care who I was, and were clearly irritated that the fact that I would be up there interrupting their pizza time. And like, and this
Is
the
that still a
setting
thing? Youth group pizza time? That was such
in
a
my
big
head it
thing.
was, I don't know.
Yeah,
All I
but
know is they were a tough crowd. I still remember.
yeah.
And then I think I came back to the other show to run my merge table. I don't know. I just remember it was like back and forth, back and forth. It was, what it was?
Yeah.
It was like a divorced parents. It was mom and
Oh.
dad are not getting along, and they have joint custody of me today. And all I want to do is go to McDonald's. That's all I want to do.
Just run away.
I just want to have McDonald's and
Just
go
want a
back on my
Happy Meal.
plane. I just want a Happy Meal. Anyway, what was your experience of the concert for the youth?
Yeah,
Especially
it was
when Bieber
all of
showed
that.
up. That was fun, right?
Yeah. I am not Justin Bieber. Sorry to disappoint everyone. Yeah, it was literally like we're here. There was a bunch of upset people.
Yes.
And so we basically were like, okay, is there a way for us to save this show?
Right.
And just we're all here. We've already spent the money to be here. We've got all the equipment. We just need a place to do it, and we need to rally up a sound system. Now, the ace in the hole was that our guitarist Nate lives in Bakersfield, so he's from there. So he was able to like make a couple phone calls locally, people he knew, to be like, "Yo, here's our situation. Can you help? Can you get me in touch with the right people to get what we need here to make this thing happen?" So we knew it was going to be a little wonky because like literally social media and stuff were like, hey, we're going to be at this place tonight at this time. All the other thing you've seen is not happening. This is happening and we're doing it. So this is where I'm going to be. This is where our band's going to be. We know that much. So if you want to be where we are, come here. So We knew it was gonna be a little
Or
wonky, but we
if you'd like pizza, come see KJ. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah. We did not have pizza. We did not offer pizza at our show. But so it was kinda cool because the people from the church that was like, "Yeah, like, do it here." There was a whole crew of people that were there that just wanted to see it happen and,
Yeah.
worked really hard to try and throw together a show in, like, less than 24 hours.
Right. A
And
concert for the
it wasn't
youth,
the
if
best
you
show
will.
ever, but a concert did happen, and people did come, and we did play
There was
songs.
youth present. We did play
Yeah,
songs.
and
Yeah.
so it happened, and it took a way more Herculean effort than any of us would have liked, but we were like, "Well, we're here. What else are we gonna do? Like, we're in Bakersfield." So,
Right. You're like, clearly, we're gonna raise this for the British Red Cross. That's what we're gonna do.
yeah,
We're gonna make sure
yeah,
the Red Cross, which is a giant organization worth millions, is
yeah,
going to get the money that they desperately need in these trying times of British
yeah.
independence.
In full disclosure, there was no money raised for the British Red Cross. 0. 0 was
They are
raised
still
for the British
they're
Red
still
Cross.
mad.
There
They're still waiting on that check. The British Red Cross is still waiting on that check. Oh man. Well, I want to before I dive into one more thing, I want to kind of talk about one of my favorite Kutless songs, which really
Yeah,
it's a I don't know, it's like a prayer. I don't know what about it is that it just always spoke to me. I always loved it. Maybe it was just the perspective of what it was. It's the song Run, which if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken the chorus goes, "Why do you run? Why do you hide?" Right?
yep,
Is that correct? Why do you run?
yep.
Why do you What's the next line? Why do you run? Why do you
This is
hide?
like my favorite
I just
song
want
of
to be
yours.
with you.
How does it go again?
Bro, it's 21 years ago, man.
I know, I gotta give you a hard time. Yeah, it's why I forget my own lyrics too, so I can't give you
Okay,
too much.
thank you very much.
It's why do you run? Why do you hide? Don't you know I just want to be with you, to be with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're coming from God's
Hey, to be
perspective.
with you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're coming from God's
Yeah,
perspective. Like you're saying, why do you run? Why do you hide? What was what was the impetus behind that? What was the method to that madness? How was that written?
yeah. So if you listen, like the first verse on that is looking down from above as you watch
Hmm.
TV, wondering why, oh, you are ignoring me. Do you remember when you first came to me, and how you love me? So
Yes.
the whole idea is
Yes.
like, I think for a lot of times, and we probably interacted with a lot of like new believers that are super on fire, like they go out and get the biggest Bible they can find and they carry it around with them
Right.
everywhere. And they're like super stoked, and somewhere between that and concert for the youth, our tendency, you
Let's
get to
bring this
concert
back
for the
down to a
youth and you're
tangible
like, yeah, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to turn on the TV. I don't even care anymore. I don't even know where my Bible is right now. I'm just,
right. I just want to go to the
um,
concert youth, raise some
yeah,
money
I just,
for the Red
I just
Cross.
want a Happy Meal. I just want to go to McDonald's with a Happy Meal. Uh,
Dad fighting.
so like, there's that progression that I think every single one of us is like predisposed to, like when we're
Yeah.
not like on fire, and like on that kind of spiritual mountaintop high, our tendency is to get distracted and to really get caught up in earthly things. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's just, mind numbing Netflix, sometimes and nowadays social media for
Sure.
doom scrolling, and then sometimes it's even good things, right? Like, we can get caught up in just work or, sports or just all the things, right? Like my kids do
Sure.
club soccer, and like there's families that soccer is their religion. Like it literally
Right.
is their whole life. And so, you're doing all these things, you're traveling, you're spending all this money, you're doing all this stuff. And it's really easy to kind of get caught up in that. And the thing that suffers is the relational part of our relationship with God. Because we're like, our theology
Sure.
hasn't necessarily changed. You're like, yeah, no, I still believe in God. I'm still a Christian. I'm still all these things. But that separation begins to happen as we aren't spending time with the Lord. And so kind of the concept there is like, you're doing life without me. Like why? And then we sin and we fall, and then we are the funny thing about like shame there is that then we actually want to go further from God because we're ashamed of what we've done, and then we
Right.
isolate even more. And God's like, this is literally the opposite of the gospel.
Right.
And so you're pursuing all these other things, you're distracted with all these other things to numb how you feel, to numb what you've done. And like, I'm not judging you. I just want to be with you. And yet you
Mm.
keep running from me. And it started in the garden with Adam and Eve. The
Yeah.
first sin ever, they ran and hid themselves from God and
Right.
covered themselves with vegetation. And so you're like, it's human tendency. I think it's been happening since the Garden of Eden. And there's this tension. And so that song was written, yeah, from the perspective of God. And hopefully I wanted it to be like a message to someone who's sitting in that place of maybe hiding from God, running from God, being distracted from God, feeling shame, feeling whatever it is that they're, or even just boredom, right? Where they're just distracted,
Sure.
to be like, hey, I love you and I'm pursuing you. Like, quit running from me. All you have to do is say yes. Like, that's all you have to do. You don't have to do anything else. Like, I've done it all. And so that was really the heart of it, was just to convey that, like, God's heart to us. And, it's challenging as an artist because you're like, I don't want to put like words in God's mouth, but like,
Right.
this is the idea that I feel like scripture shows us in his heart for us and how it applies to our daily life in current culture and where we're at today. In Jesus' day,
That's
they
good.
didn't have Netflix. Today, we definitely do. And it's created some tension in our lives in different ways. It's created distraction.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think these are simple truths, but they're so easy to mess up or miss. And, I do think of what that verse you're talking about, that's what God says in the garden, like, where are you? It's not like God's like,
Yeah.
I lost my Adam and Eve. You guys see them around here? I mean, he's saying
Yeah.
because he wants them to come out. And it's funny too, if you think about the fact that they covered themselves as their own attempt to cover their shame. And yet we see in
Hmm.
scripture that God goes out and basically kills an animal to cover them. Like he's, even back then, covering their sin, covering their shame, with the shedding
Hmm.
of blood. So very profound truth. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of wrap up with something. I wanted to actually talk to you, which at the time when we toured, I had no idea, but you've
Yeah.
come out in the last couple recent years about, which props to you, sir, because anytime we get transparent or we get real about who we are, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes courage to say courage. Anyway, you've been honest about your struggles with obsessive compulsive disorder,
Hmm.
and was that something that you always felt like why am I like this, or was it that you hit a certain point in your life, you're like, something's off and I need to figure out what it is? Explain your genesis on that.
Yeah, so I would say I'm still, I'm 45 years old, and really the last like 6 years of my life, I've been doing some pretty significant personal work of just
Mhm.
like realizing that there's a lot of stuff in my life that I had never really addressed. And
Sure.
not, I don't know, I think we're all created a little bit differently, and we navigate our ways through life a little bit differently depending on how we're wired. And so my kind of DNA was always like, well, if you don't like how it's going, just work harder, and double
Mm,
down and just keep and
mhm.
and lean into it. And so that was kind of like my natural response to things. But when you do that for 40 years straight, like all of a sudden, like you can't throttle down anymore. Like
Mhm.
there's enough built up over decades that you're like, oh,
Sure.
I can't do that anymore. Like I don't have it in me, and stuff is coming apart in a way that I don't understand, I can't control. And I was starting to deal with some like really weird health stuff, and like, some mental health things, and I'm like, where is this coming from? What is going on? And I realized that there was like some things that in my life that I didn't recognize. And it took some work to
Mm.
like to recognize. And I'm really grateful to a couple of men in my life that have walked with me through that, have
That's
asked me
awesome.
some hard questions and like have discipled me and counseled me. One of those guys was a Christian therapist for 40 plus years, and he's still a good friend to this day. That he is just awesome. And so he had like some clinical knowledge too in his back pocket that was helped me to weed through a few of the things that I was dealing with, but then also
Sure.
just very godly wisdom and scripture. And he was very gentle and kind with me. And I'm just so thankful for his influence in my life. So first and foremost, like as we kind of like jump into this, like I cannot stress the importance enough of having brothers and sisters in Christ to walk with us, or like spiritual mentors and people who disciple us. As especially as men, we're really bad generally about engaging in those relationships and maintaining them until our
Sure.
whole world falls apart. And
Absolutely.
I think that's a fantastic way for us to guarantee that our whole world's going to fall apart because we didn't
Right.
work on it for the last 15 years,
Right.
and then
You
we're
hold the
like,
beach
oh
ball
no,
under the water.
yeah, until eventually you can't. And so I would just really encourage people that are struggling to be engage in people that they trust, and engage in
Sure.
those relationships. And then, and this is where it brings to kind of what you've seen with me in the last few years, being vulnerable about it. And not everybody needs to go on a podcast and talk about all their problems. It's not necessarily
We need more
what we're
podcasts.
saying
There's
here.
not enough
Yeah.
podcasts out there.
Yeah, there's not enough out there. But to in that safe environment to be really transparent and vulnerable with those people, I believe that that relationship that God is, as Christians, God has called us when he was asked what are the greatest commandments, what's the greatest commandment, he said love your neighbor as yourself, love the Lord your God with all your mind, heart, soul, and strength. Right, those two things, upon these two hang all the law and
Yeah,
prophets. And what that really
sure,
defines for me is this, like, Christianity is about relationship. It's about relationship with my brothers, it's about relationship with God. And all of the goods and bads and yeses and nos flow from that place.
sure, sure.
And so there was a book about that I read 2 or 3 years ago by Dr. Larry Crabb called Inside Out that was life-changing for me.
That's awesome.
And so I grew up as a Christian kid. My dad was a pastor in a megachurch at the Shire, and so I was in the bubble at a really young age. And now, as I look back, I am able to see some of the pressure that was upon me in my life as far as what the Christian culture expected of me, the way that my mind was thinking as a young child, because of that expectation, and then the environment I grew up in of just a conservative Christian culture. It's very easy for us to talk about grace and then be very legalistic in the way that we operate. And so we say it's all about
Sure.
grace, but then we don't live that way. We live very legalistic, right? And so there was that tension for me growing up, and I was the kind of person that was like, okay, if this is what you expect of me, I'm going to level that up one more than that. I'm going to exceed your
Mm,
expectations. And so I began to lean into that really, really hard. And that looked like, being very devout in my devotions and reading my Bible every day, going to church, all of this. I mean, I was going to church like 3, 4 times a week. We had Wednesday night
right.
Bible study. We had a Sunday morning service. We had a Sunday night worship service. We had like a, Tuesday night worship service. Like, I was like constantly involved in the church and constantly doing things. And I was involved in youth group and just all the stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And all of that continued to create pressure on my life. I was an athlete. I was playing soccer and track were kind of my two main sports. I was a straight A student. Like, I was trying to win at everything, and it was too much pressure, right? Like, it was just way too much pressure. And so when I was about 14 years old, my teachers at school at a parent teacher conference told my parents, like, hey, we're seeing these behaviors in him where he's like picking at his head a lot. And I was creating, there was like, I'd get like a zit or like a irritation, and I would just like attack it kind of, right? And so they were like, we just kind of have some concerns. Well, that turned into what was later diagnosed as trichotillomania. It's an obsessive compulsive hair pulling
Pulling out the
disorder.
hair. Yep.
And so it actually pulled the hair out by the root. And there's a weird dopamine hit. And I've done a bunch of research on it since, but there's like a weird dopamine hit that happens when you do that. It's pain that like, it like weirdly feels good. Like, the best I can describe it to is like stretching, like when you stretch your muscles and you're like, that hurts, but it also feels good because it's stretching my muscles. And
Sure.
so this became a compulsive outlet that I didn't even know why I was doing it. Sometimes I wasn't even aware that I was doing it. And it was challenging because now it's embarrassing when people would catch me,
Mhm.
and over
Right.
time it began to create bald spots in my hair. And so even as a high schooler, there would be times where I'd be like trying to move my hair in a way where I wasn't showing the bald spots that I was creating because I was compulsively pulling it out. And so I saw a doctor about it. I tried medication for a little bit. I read a bunch of books on it, and just nothing really worked. I had some seasons where I did well. I went like a month without doing it. Was like, hey, we're on the up and up, and then I just totally tanked and like destroyed my whole head. And I was just like this constant thing, but I was still pursuing perfection and pursuing everything. I
Right.
was,
Right.
you know, like, our soccer team was ranked 8th in the nation. We were state champions. And then I was, my senior year, I was captain of the soccer team, captain of the track team, straight A student, went on a full ride soccer scholarship. I was doing music and worship, and like, I was, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And then in college, I
Right.
continued with that like overly torqued mindset. I fractured my sternum in college, and I took 2 weeks off and played the rest of the season, and then won all conference accolades. I shouldn't even be playing, but like,
Right.
I couldn't stop. So uh, through all of that, I realized like I needed an outlet. Something had to give
Right.
somewhere,
It's got to
right?
go somewhere.
And so it's got
But I think sometimes when people think of OCD, they think of the habitual hand washer or the hoarder, and I think I have family members who have it. So I've tried to do as much research on it as I can. A good way to explain it, it's like in a non OCD brain, the synapse, the electrical impulse of a thought will come into the brain or into that part. It will then exit the other way out the neuron. Whereas in the obsessive compulsive brain, the synapse or the electrical impulse comes in and then just gets caught in a loop and it continues to do that. And then the only way to get it out of that loop is to purge it with the compulsion. And I think
Mhm.
this idea of the habitual hand washer as the OCD, I'm a German, people like, I'm just a little OCD, I've got to put my stuff in order. It's like, it
Yeah.
really does an injustice to people that really have this constant battle in their thoughts. And I think about that because that's a better way to understand it. Imagine that you can't escape your thoughts. Your thoughts are always happening, but the thought was just constantly like a record skipping until you do the compulsion, which the compulsion then starts the whole thing all over again. And what you're describing sounds like the obsession is to be perfect, to be excelling, to be, this high level of performance, which on the Christian level and the church level is like, look at him. He's such a good pastor's kid.
Yeah.
He's such an athlete.
Everybody's
He's all, you're
high-fiving
getting,
and being like,
you're,
yeah.
yeah, you're getting all the accolades and everyone's like, you're such a good example, right? You're so on fire
Mm.
for Jesus and not knowing that, yeah, on the other side is I can't alleviate this compulsion. I got to start pulling my hair out.
Mhm.
But again, in the church world, we use verses like take every thought captive. You have the mind of Christ. The enemy is trying to get in your thoughts. And it's like, this does nothing to help somebody who has OCD. Pray harder,
Mhm.
read your Bible more,
Yeah.
take the thought captive.
'Cause
So I just want to pause that.
I literally can't control it, and I don't even
Right.
know I'm doing it sometimes, right? And so I'm like, if I
Especially
don't know
when it
I'm
happens
doing it.
when you're young.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't understand it. And
You don't
now,
understand it.
but that is to say, like, most of this comes from somewhere, though, I feel like, and so there's things in our lives that seem uncorrelated, that and that's why I kinda take you through the story a little bit, because now in my 40s, I'm realizing, like, I was under an immense amount of stress as a young teenager that was not normal, and I responded
Mm,
to that in a certain way that was
mm,
unhealthy,
mm.
and I really believe that our mind and our bodies and our souls are absolutely connected
Sure.
in very powerful ways, in ways that even medical, doctors don't always. We're so segmented in Western medicine, right? Like,
Right.
we like to keep everything compartment. It's like, okay, well, this is a physical issue and this is a mental issue, and this is a mental health issue, whatever. We keep it all compartmentalized. But when I was breaking out in hives a few years back from and having a panic attack from stress, I was having very real physical bodily symptoms that were happening to
Sure.
me that I couldn't
Sure.
control. And I was taking Benadryl to try and chill the hives out. But it was like, I wasn't having an allergic reaction. My body's reacting to stress. Like, so these
Mm,
things are all interwoven, interconnected. And that's been part of my journey, is starting to understand and realize, like, I can't just like put this in a vacuum and be like, well, just
sure.
stop doing it. Like, just
Right.
have better self-control. Just pray a little harder,
Right.
and then it's all good. Like, I'm like, this is a complex, multifaceted thing that is a symptom of a much larger thing that's happening within me and in my body and in my life. And it's not just something that I can just like change my behavior. Right?
Right.
And
Right.
and I've heard from people that like deal with cutting a lot too. Like, most of the people
Right.
that compulsively cut themselves, it's coming from a place of a whole lot of internal pain and agony that
Sure.
they can't deal with, and they need an outlet,
Right.
and
Right.
and then it becomes something that they can't stop, right? And it becomes compulsive, and it doesn't matter how hard they try. It's the same thing. They have these seasons where they do a little bit better, and then they tank again, and they do a little better, because it's all like white knuckling it, and you can't white knuckle your way through these things. Where I found the most healing, and I still wrestle with trichotillomania to this day, and I have seasons that I do better than others, but it what I found is it is related to my stress for sure. Like,
Mm,
as stress goes up, it definitely affects me. I tend to catch myself doing it more. So there is definitely a stress relation there. But through the work I've done the last few years, I've also realized that that physical symptom outlet, I believe, was really attached to my perfectionism and the pressure that I had on me. And there was a physical externalization of that was really
sure.
unhealthy and that was damaging to my body. And so as I've kind of quit trying to white knuckle it, if that makes sense. Of like, okay, I got to get this thing
That's
under
awesome.
control. I got to try harder, because that's what put me into this thing, under this hamster wheel, was trying harder.
Right.
It ironically has been about learning to let go and to trust God and to be like, man, I'm recognizing that I had some unhealthy ways that I viewed the world that drove me to places that were unhealthy for my body and for my mind. And so those shifts have been really helpful for me.
It's awesome.
And just to give you an example, one of the things that Larry Crabb, the guy that wrote that book, brought up, and one of the things I was reading from him, he was like, "Is it possible that reading your Bible and going to church and praying could be a sin?" I was like, "What? No." Like, that's how we get to know God. Like, if you ask somebody like, "How do you get to know God better?" You'd say those things, right? And
Sure.
he's like, "Well, why are you doing it? Are you doing that because you're making a contract with God because you think that if you do all these things that your life is going to go better and because your life's going to look like you want it to and you're going to get the outcome that you want?" It's like, "Well, what do you do when you
It's
don't get the outcome that
transactional,
you want?"
right?
It's
It's a
transactional. Yeah.
transactional. Yeah. God, if I do
And
this,
that is, yep.
yeah,
And it's a sin against the relationship, the heart that God has for you. And I was like, I've done that. I've
it's
totally done that.
powerful.
Guilty, you know? And so that was understanding this link to me has been something that's been really huge of going, okay, I need to get my heart right. And this is a much longer conversation. I can go down the rabbit hole another time with you sometime. But another book I read, he talked about listening prayer, and I did this listening prayer exercise, and God really showed me through that at the age of about 5 was like kind of some of the earliest memories I had is that I had a deep-seated fear that if I was not perfect, that people would abandon me.
Mm,
And out of that rose this. So one of the things that they said is when you're speaking with the Lord, talking to the Lord, what happened in my life that caused this like shift in my thinking, and what is the lie that Satan then used that experience, that circumstance to change the way that I operated and the way that I thought? What's the lie that I agreed with and that I
right.
believed? And that's what I was like, oh my gosh, like the lie that Satan planted in my mind when I was like 5 years old is that if I'm not perfect, that people will abandon me. And I
Mm,
lived in this relentless pursuit of perfection so that I would never feel the hurt of abandonment. Right. And then it still happens anyways. And then you're like, I
right.
don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with this. And so, and then it was like, well, what is the truth? And the truth is
Right.
that God loves me unconditionally, that he will never leave me. He'll never forsake me. And that's where the hope lies. And that's where the foundation lies. And so I wish I could say I've got that down where I just, yep, God's got me. I totally trust him. We're totally good. And I'm not stressed at all anymore. But I'm not there. I'm working on it. But
Sure.
understanding that it's not so much about me white knuckling this OCD to like be like, I got to buckle this thing down and get back to perfection.
Right.
It's, I need to learn to let go and trust that God has got me and that I'm in his hands and that I don't need to be perfect. And ironically, that helps me more than me trying really hard to get better at my OCD.
Those are simple truths, but again, really powerful truths. Well, I want to say thank you so much for being obviously very transparent.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing some things that have helped you. I'm sure there's someone that's going to tune in and be like, "Oh, I'm not that far down the road. I've never thought about it that way. Oh, okay, this makes sense now." Probably self-awareness is key. So
Yeah.
again, thank you so much, man. I'm gonna probably go ahead and wrap.
Absolutely.
I'm actually gonna get my kid
Sweet.
to his jujitsu. But what I wanted to do is
Nice.
just end with some prayer, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Take a minute
Yeah.
to pray. Okay. Father, I want to say, first of all, thank you for what you've done in this man's life. Lord, I thank you that you never give up on us. You are constantly bringing us to where we need to be at. God, thank you for his journey. Thank you for the bumps in the road that have continued to make him understand what you have for him. God, I thank you for 20 plus years of hilarious tour memories. You were always there with us in every step. Lord, I thank
Mm.
you for this, just the pure joy of doing music for you, for your glory. Oh, that's such a privilege, Lord. And just continue to speak life over him, his family, and everything he puts his hands to. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, dude. It's good to see you.
Hey, it was great. It was great talking with you, man. I
Yeah.
will continuously try to send you that concert flyer every 3 days just to remind you of how much money we have now raised for the British Red Cross. There's still time. There's still time to turn this ship around. All right, homie. I
That's
appreciate you,
amazing.
man. Can't wait to hear more
Dude,
stuff
you
from you.
too.
All right. Have a blessed
Sounds
day, man.
good. Sounds
All
good.
right.
You too, bro. Thank you.